Alright. Hello, I'm Weather from the Summer School Discord, and today I'm going to be walking through a game of Jungle Jax. And something that I like doing at the start of every gameplay review is to start talking about win conditions. Win conditions is something that's really important and often isn't given enough credit to because this kind of defines your overall strategy, where you need to be putting pressure, where you need to roam to, and where you need to have early vision, what kind of ways you're going to group later, or how much vision control you need. Simple things like that start adding up to the plays you can make as a team. So we're going to go through both teams. We're going to talk about what both of these teams want to do, and then we're going to start moving this into what you can do to contribute to your win condition and how you're going to close out a game with the way it plays out. So starting with kind of just looking at your team has a very good knock-up team fight with Malphite and Yasuo. So you have good potential with this synergy, but you also have a good amount of AP damage, assuming that the Morgana gets some AP and the Malphite gets some AP, and Jax is kind of hybrid, to keep you in the game if it goes long enough. You're not a full AD team, which means you have a good mix of AP, you have a good team fight, but you also have relatively good split push between the Jax and the Yasuo. What you're going to be really kind of trying to figure out is how the Morgana and the Twitch are going to play into the rest of this. Because if your Twitch gets far enough ahead, you can start looking for these team fights, because you have a really good team fight if you want it. But if you don't want it, you're going to be trying to play towards where the Yasuo or the Jax is able to split push and keep the game going. Looking at their team, they've got a Rumble who's got pretty good team fight too and has a really good matchup into Malphite. You have a Xin Zhao who gives good early pressure and kind of plays as an assassin mid to late game. A Talon which has more assassination potential, and then kind of this poke bot lane with a good amount of disengage. So their team fights are going to be played around having the Ezreal poke or the Zyra poke, and then just having a all-in engage really fast between the Talon coming at the side, the Xin coming at the side, or just a Rumble ultimate slowing you guys down. So what you need to look for with this and your team comp is where you can create an advantage, right? That's kind of the whole point of this. So what I said is, generally, both of these teams do pretty well in team fights. But whenever you're looking at the individuals, the bottom lane is going to be pretty hard for you to influence, because the most you're ever going to get from bottom lane is probably one kill. And it's really dependent on what kind of CC you get, and it's also dependent on how they're playing pushback or anything to that effect. Your best place that you can influence this game is going to be mid lane. And now I'm going to talk about specifically this matchup and what it means. Whenever you have something like a Katarina or like a Yasuo or a Diana or a Talon, these are champions that require jungle presence. They do. They require jungle presence because they have to play aggressive to win the lane. And if this lane wins, if the Yasuo lane wins, he's going to be able to transition into a side lane pretty efficiently, while Talon can't necessarily clear efficiently against Siege. He's got a good thing with his W, but that's not going to clear everything. That might clear the casters. So you're going to get free time on a turret if you do put the Talon behind and you rotate around lanes. Your top lane matchup is also something that's pretty worthwhile in influencing, because if you get this top lane Rumble behind, you're going to be helping out a lot. And Rumble does have an advantage in this matchup, but you have plenty of chase potential between the Malphite and the Jax with your stun and your slow to chase down a Rumble who only has flash to get away. So your influence is going to come from helping bottom, or not bottom, but helping mid and top. And I would pretty much ignore bottom here. Your jungle matchup is favoring the Xin Zhao early, but he's going to fall off compared to you later. This doesn't mean you're just supposed to scale. This means that you're going to look for your early lead on mid, and you're going to provide protection for mid, because this is where, if this lane loses, it's going to be exactly the reverse of what I just mentioned. The Talon, if he's far enough ahead, could just one-shot your Yasuo, and that's going to put your split push behind, and it's going to make it so you can't rotate. And if you can't rotate, bottom lane is probably going to favor their team, and their team's going to win. It's just they're not going to win hard, but they're going to win. And top lane is going to win too with this normal matchup. So everything on their team has a very strong early game and is very likely to win, except for mid lane. Mid lane's the one that you have the most influence on right here. And I know that's a lot of talk before the game even starts, but it's important to have a strategy in mind. If you don't have a plan, then and you're just going with whatever happens, it's kind of like playing chess against someone who knows what they're doing, right? If you only can play the one move without ever planning ahead, you're gonna fucking lose. In chess, you're planning moves ahead, whether or not that pawn is worth sacrificing, and how you're gonna get the next piece. That's all this is. So something else that's really important to talk about, it's you need to get early vision in every game. If your team's not helping you with it because your Morgana was AFK, your Yasuo is AFK, and your Twitch is basically AFK going down to his tower, you need to put yourself in a position where you can defend your own buffs. Otherwise, one of these games you're going to get invaded, and you're going to die, and they're going to steal your red, and you're going to have a very shitty time for no reason. It's something that you don't have to give them, because you have these lovely trinkets. So what you can do to help your lane is to trinket. I know you can't defend both entrances, but at the same time, you can. If you trinket your tri-brush and you know you're not going to have anyone else looking, and then you stand over here, you at least know if they're invading you. Because if they come through this way, you see them. And if they come through this way, you see them. Really important to get early vision, and let me go a little bit briefly into why, because it's important to understand the impact that this could have. It's very obvious when you start thinking about the snowballing implications the league has. If you get 500 gold early, that's an extra item. If you have an extra item, you're more likely to kill someone later. If you're more likely to kill someone later, you're more likely to just get the tower, you're more likely to win the lane, you're more likely to get dragons, you're more likely to have more influence on other ends of the map, like maybe you're going to roam middle. You're going to do more. It makes sense whenever you think about it, and of course that's going to fucking happen, right? But there's other things that are much smaller. Let's say they don't get a kill. Let's say they just take your buff. If they just take this buff, all of a sudden they've removed all of your gank pressure because you're only going to do a standard clear and get level 3 with only blue buff if you're doing a full clear and you're not going to be healthy enough because you don't have that regen or leash. So all of a sudden, if they just take your red buff, all they do is take your red buff. No kills, they take your red buff. They already made it so that way you are useless until 5 minutes. And if you get something done between then and 5 minutes, it's either that you got a lucky cheese playoff or they weren't playing correctly, and that happens too. But you realistically are put at such a big advantage from experience and gank pressure of losing this buff that alone is enough to make it so that way you can't play the game for the first 5 minutes. And if you've ever surrendered a game at 15 minutes and you understand the way the game snowballs, all of those 15 minutes, the earlier something happens, and the snowballing nature of this game means it has more impact. So these first 5 minutes is essentially half of the first 15 minutes of the game, because it has that much implication. If you're not doing things this early, you're losing half of the time that you could be impacting a 15-minute surrender game, and all of a sudden your team's fucking tilted to shit, and they just want to surrender at 20 minutes then if the surrender fails. So you really need to make sure you give yourself early vision so you never give these early leads. It's something that's super simple to defend against too, because all you need is a ward and to be paying attention over here, and now you don't give up those easy early leads. So do that. If your team's not doing it for you, do it for yourself, and it's something you can do for yourself. And if you see the way this lane already has played out, do you see how aggressive this is? Just to give you a show of, I'll show you their level 1, right? Now, I'm not saying you gank this level 1. He's already gone this far into the lane, right? This far into the lane using his dash, meaning the only way he gets out of this shit is flash. And if he flashes here, you just come back and you kill him later. But that gives you an idea of to how aggressive these lanes are. You have to be aggressive in this specific type of lane to win. And now your Yasuo did not trade correctly back. He just kind of accepted the damage. So yes, you're at a disadvantage to gank this now, but it's just showing you why my plan was to focus mid lane. Okay. So it's important to always be watching the map and to see whenever you spot the enemy jungler, because tracking enemy junglers and enemy players is an incredibly important part of like every role. If you're thinking about this, what you see here is the Xin Zhao has his red buff, right? I don't know if you'd be able to get that from just glancing at the minimap, but this is something that you could observe if you were paying attention to this aggression mid. You see Xin Zhao, you check and see health bars, you see if it's worth coming to, right? So Xin Zhao has red, which means he started top side and he's clearing bottom. If he does a full clear for level 3 and is looking to gank bottom, he's looking to gank between 3 minutes and 4 minutes. It's a wide window, but that's because you already see him here at level 2. So if he wants level 3, he's going to do a camp and he's going to go bottom. If he just beelines it, he's going to be there at 3. That's why your window is like 3 minutes to 4 minutes, basically. So what this also means is you're not going to see him top lane until about 5-6 minutes. So that means that this gank, if you were to go top, is going to be a 2 versus 1. But that doesn't mean this is necessarily what you want to do. If you're seeing this happen on the map, and you know what the Xin Zhao is going to do, you know he's going to be trying to gank bottom. If he doesn't get something off middle, that's his next option. But you also know that since he's already showing up middle, he has the intent to gank middle. So even though you're seeing this, and it looks like it's a free gank, I would still be looking to come middle and maybe try and bait out a dive where the enemy is trying to dive the Yasuo, or a play where you can try and turn this aggression back on them. And you already see the pressure this Xin Zhao is trying to put on this lane. If you go top and you get a kill, what's going to happen in this situation is the Rumble's going to TP back. The leads that you get top lane require an investment. They require 2 ganks minimum. And if they get away with their flash the first time, it requires 3 ganks. So this is an investment, and although this is something that you could impact right now without the enemy jungler coming, you're not going to put this lane ahead. So you would only put yourself ahead, and that's not going to be a huge decider in this early game. This early game is here. And you see the Yasuo knows he's pinging. And you see how they go in aggressively? Do you see the kind of stuff that happens here? Now you obviously can't gank mid because there's no one mid. But you need to be pinging your team because look at what's... Okay. Zin's doing his camp and is going to go down at level 3. But you're seeing that Xin Zhao is probably going to be playing to bot side. I'm going to leave his vision on. You need to be pinging your team to play back. And you need to ping when you're ganking. If you don't ping when you're ganking, like I see you have on your way, but 1 is not enough. And look when you do this. You finish your blue buff. On your way, right? 45. You only ping once at 45. You look like you turn around briefly. You then walk around here. There was a 10-second gap between your ping and your gank. Now, it's a good idea to give an indicator that that's what you wanted to do, to eventually come up top lane and do this. But you also need to understand that by doing that early ping, people aren't paying attention by the time 10 seconds is gone. They're paying attention for like maybe 5 seconds. So you need another ping because look, Malphite's already backed off. He's not able to auto attack, he's not hardly able to slow, and he's not going to get in on this fight. So this is a wasted gank in every way. Now, if it was me jungling here, and I saw what the Xin Zhao was doing, and he was playing bot side, and I had just cleared this, and I know that impacting top lane isn't going to really happen, I would either be looking for an early recall, where I would be doing this camp, I go bottom with my, my first jungle item, and I'd be looking to gank this, or I would have just straight beelined it down towards bottom. Because this is not a kill. They're both full health. Malphite's playing too far back, and you know the Xin Zhao's not here to allow this guy to be playing aggressive. It is a 2 versus 1, but it's not a kill. You need to recognize where the enemy jungler is going to be, and this lane wasn't a focus, but what I would have thought is that the Xin Zhao is going to come bottom. And if the Xin Zhao is going to come bottom, that means this lane is going to be the next focus. And if it's the next focus and Ezreal ease in aggressively, that's a kill for you. And looking at the health bars here, this is 2 kills for you at least. Maybe 3 if Xin Zhao misplays his gank. So you're hovering around here a lot, and this is kind of a problem. So you know you're not going to really find Xin Zhao in his jungle, and the only thing you could be doing right now is getting vision. If you wanted to be getting deep vision, that's an okay idea. But by going and counter jungling this, you're not putting the enemy jungler behind because he's probably not going to fucking be doing these Krugs. He's probably going to be looking for a gank down here, and then he's... Do you see how he's still got these camps? These camps aren't even his focus for a while. And he's not going to be over here because you've already seen him bottom. You saw him down here. So you're not hunting him down if you were being an aggressive jungler, which you shouldn't have been looking for that 1v1 at this point anyways. You're also in their territory with this wave pushing up, right? This wave is in a place where the Talon can do whatever the fuck he wants for the next 20 seconds. So if you get spotted out here, it's a 2 versus 1 minimum where the Talon comes to you and the Xin Zhao is here for some fucking reason. Or a 3 versus 1 if the Rumble pushes and then comes. Or maybe it's a 3 versus 2 if the Rumble and the Malphite come, but the Rumble's gonna come first. So the only thing you're getting from this is gold. That's it. Gold for you that is not denying the enemy because Xin Zhao is not here. You're taking a risk for gold. And if you're taking a risk for gold, you got Scuttle and you got Gromp to take that are not a risk. So the only reason you're doing this is for vision, and you know where the enemy jungler is. He's down here. You know he's clearing his camps and is down on that side of the map from 3 to 4 minutes from what I said. So even if you warded right now, it would be dead by the time the enemy jungler is top lane, so you would not spot him out and it would not help. There is no reason to be in the enemy jungler right now, and this is wasted time. If you wanted to go and you do Wraiths and then go down and gank mid, and that was your pathing choice, that is an okay idea, but I would still not like to see that because there is a chance that the Xin Zhao was just farming, and there is a chance that you could get caught out. If you wanted to do a gank like this, you could have just as easily walked to your Gromp, done Scuttle, and then looked for this gank. This is not denying anything. This is not denying anything, and this does a shitload. The Raptors do a shitload of damage to you right now. Well, maybe not because you have Counter-Strike, but a traditional jungler they would. And watch how this ward is not going to spot anything out. Okay, so you're coming back for a dive. That was a very good dive. But if you see what you did with this time, this is still wasted time, and that's a problem. If you wanted to do something with your time, this is not going to spot out the enemy jungler. You want to do Scuttle. That's going to give you gold. And it's going to give you the potential to quickly go mid or top depending upon what happens. Because you saw the way this lane was playing, and you could have chosen to walk mid if this lane didn't get in a position where for some reason the Rumble was like fucking dead before you even got there. I don't even know how that happened. Okay, yeah, he's not paying attention to his abilities. He walks in when his shield was down and stuff. So a lot of mistakes with that trade. But he shouldn't. What I'm getting at is the Rumble should not have been in a diveable position here. If you were to dive this, it would have taken you an extra turret hit to kill him in a context where he was properly managing his health. But he wasn't, so taking the kill is fine. This is, if you get an advantage and an opportunity to do this, always take it. It's just that you cannot rely on opportunities like this is what I'm getting at. And if you're doing something, like if you pay attention to how much time you wasted with this maneuver here, right? From 45, you decided that you were going to gank. From here, it looks like you might be able to blow his flash. That's it. you might be able to blow his flash. So from 45, right? From 45, you spend about 45 seconds on this side of the map without farming a single camp. And that's something that I'm not telling you to permanently farm. I'm telling you that what you did with your time with the initial gank, at most you would have blown flash, so I wouldn't have really looked for that, because you have to invest 3 ganks to put a top laner behind if you were just blowing a flash with the first gank. This dive, great to show up for, but this ward isn't going to see anyone. You see what I'm getting at? If you want to do something with your time, look for a camp and then look for your gank. So 45 seconds you spent, you could have easily done Scuttle, or you could have even done Gromp, and then you could have looked for this dive all the same. This ward is not going to see anyone because you already saw the Xin Zhao was bottom, so this was wasted time. The first gank was also wasted time. This is a good capitalized. This is a good capitalization. I don't know if that's the way you would tense it, but this is a good gank. The other one was not, and the ward was not good. You see how he's in your jungle right now doing this? It's because he saw you on the other side of the map, so he knows it's safe to invade. You haven't seen him for a little while, which is why Raptors would have been a risky invade, and that would have been the only pathing you could have taken around here, because he could have cleared up after that. Who fucking knows? It wouldn't have really been good pathing, but it's pathing. And then you end up coming to do this camp anyways. Do you see? Okay, I'm just going to turn your vision off now. Or their vision off. And once again, this lane is playing aggressive. And you see the Xin Zhao again pops up middle for some reason. Now, since you've seen him nothing but bottom for the first, 2 minutes of when you've been tracking him, it would be safe to assume your Raptors are gone. You just did this play top lane, and it would have been a very safe invade, especially with how much more pressure the Talon has been having. I would be looking to straight up go middle here, because you see how aggressive the Talon's been playing. But if I was coming middle from base, I would have come middle from top side, because I would have assumed that there were no camps here, and I would have assumed that if there was any vision, it would have been on the side of the map that they controlled. So your two options here are to gank mid lane like this, or to go and farm your Krugs and potentially gank bottom if they try and dive your Twitch. Those are your two options. By doing what you're doing now, you are assuming you're either going to, 1, catch out the Xin while he's counter jungling you, but he should have already finished that, or you're trying to farm your Raptors. Trying to farm your Raptors, which aren't here, and there was a ward. This is something you don't need to chase. You put yourself in a bad position. You still end up getting a kill. You still end up getting 2 kills. All right. I would be really cautious about chasing that, because if they kited this out instead of fighting you, do you see how you were just walking this way and you were going to continue walking that way, it seemed? If they baited it out, watch what happens over here, right? Who's in a position on this side of the map to come help? It's obviously Rumble. So if you continue chasing up here and they kited you this way, there was no kill to be had, and you could have been collapsed on. You were turning around here, but I don't know if that was because you saw the Xin Zhao or if it was because you would have turned around anyways. If you would have turned around anyways, that was the smart move, but you then realized that this whole chase was wasted time, because forcing him out that extra amount didn't do anything, because it also denied you that same time. And by ganking from the bottom, they knew where they had to respond to. So let's watch your gank again, right? For starters, no ping. You don't have a on my way ping. Yeah, you need a ping. All Yasuo had to do was E in and Q once, basically, and that would have been enough damage there. Even if the Yasuo would have died, you could have denied this wave, which would have been good. Um, if you had come from topside, I think the Talon would have tried to dive your Yasuo, and you would have picked up a kill. Instead, you end up picking up 2 kills, but because of their misplays, basically. And again, if you're given it, it's good, but it's not something you can rely on. This is actually a good ward. It doesn't have to be a pink right now, but to go into timers, you know that the next jungle camp for the buff that's going to spawn for Xin Zhao is his red buff, and it's going to spawn in about a minute. So this is definitely going to see the enemy jungler, and if you're going to be cheeky about it, this could help you steal it. So this is a good ward, and it's because you know where they will be, and this confirms it. I wouldn't have put a pink here because it's very likely that it's going to die soon, and it's very unlikely that this bush was warded. So the only reason you would be pinking this is if your trinket was on cooldown, which it was, but your trinket was, I think, this. Yeah, you trinketed over here. So you see how quickly this dies? You could have trinketed his red buff instead of pinking it. There was no reason to pink that. That was a wasted ward. Your pathing here is also a little bit fucked up, because if you're going to be doing this camp, you're going to make it so that way you have to walk up top lane for just your blue buff. If you recalled here, you're going to be able to buy items for like the first time in a while. You just picked up these kills, right? Use that gold. You need to use gold to have a lead. If you do not use your gold, you are not ahead. So base, buy your items, come bottom, and start clearing up and look for your return gank on this or come to mid again. You've already seen the Talon flash, I think, or maybe that was just Xin Zhao, but I would be clearing from the bottom up. You need to make sure you're using your recalls. The way that you do it here, you're greeting for camps. And if you're doing this, it means that you only need like 100 gold for an item. That's the only reason you'd ever want to do this, because you're screwing up future pathing. And you're not using your gold. Get your red buff before you try and gank this. There's no reason to rush in like this. They're playing back already. You can do your red buff and come down bottom by the time it's crashing on turret, and it'll be just the same gank, except for you'll be 6. The reason they go in here is because they saw you and they were trying to get a kill before you killed them. They would have been able to play safely until you finished your red buff. I mean, this... I would have just got my red buff first. It still ended up working out. See how much this lane is like a shit show? I'm not talking about it as the player, I'm talking about it as the champions. You were in the right place at the right time to come and get this kill, and you need to understand that this is the way this lane plays. You need to do this a lot, and you need to do this early, and you need to do this often. A lot and often be the same thing, but you get the idea. If you had items there, you would have gotten that kill and not had to rely on the ignite to get it. You need to shop, and you had a window to shop. Now look what camps you have up, and look how awkward this position is. Even if you had cleared your raptors, you would have had to just run mid after, or run top afterwards, right? Or maybe you would have based and backed then, wasting some of your buff time, which means that you would have been less capable of getting your next gank off, even though you then would have items. Now you're looking to gank bottom again, it looks like, which is not a bad idea. You do have your red buff, but you still haven't shopped. You need to shop. And if you had shot by now, you probably could solo the dragon. This is a very safe buff steal, actually. Normally, I would be talking about how invades are not very safe. This is a stupid ward, though. If you're warding right here, you're literally giving yourself the exact same vision that you're going to have taking this blue buff. You really need to work on your warding. Because if someone's going to come to this, contest this, it's realistically only going to be the Zyra. Because you just killed the Xin Zhao, and Talon's got a CS. It's under his tower. He's over here. The only person or people that are going to respond to this are bot laners. If you want to safely do this, you're either going to ward over here, so you can see Ezreal coming, or you're going to ward this tribe rush, so you can see the Zyra coming. By warding here, it shows me that you have no idea how to ward. This is definitely a problem of yours, because you pink over here and you ward over here the first time, and those are two completely wasted wards the way that it ended up happening, right? This is the only ward that you did that was good in my books, and you had the same knowledge from what you had over here already. You've got to be better with your wards. They are a resource, and they're one way you can help your team without doing like anything else on the map. You see how the Ezreal and the Zyra are here? And you see how the only one that was keeping them pushed in was a Twitch? They would have been the ones to come and contest this, and they would have been coming from this tribe rush or lane. If you warded over here, there's a chance that they would have seen it because Ezreal was walking to lane. If you warded the tribe rush, it would have been safer. Would have given you a good defense. You've gotten so many free kills. So many free kills. You haven't backed in like 8 minutes. Use your gold. Use your lead. Everything has an opportunity cost. That is the nature of this game. Whether or not you gank top, right? Does that mean that the enemy ganks bottom? You have to be doing something, right, at all times. But that doesn't always make it the right choice because of future consequences. What you have done, staying for this turret was the right move. But you have put yourself in a situation where you really needed to recall. Because look at the fucking items you get whenever you base. You get a full Trinity Force and a full Cinder Hulk with a base. So you had to do it, right? But because you based when you did, that was whenever their whole team was resetting. Because, of course, you just took this tower and you just killed them. So they're all going to come back. And they're all going to be looking for something to do. They're going to either chase down your team, they're going to do Dragon, or they're going to push down a turret in response while you're not there. Do you know how much you are of your team right now? Your bottom lane is 2 and 6. Your mid lane is 4-3, which is basically even. You're 8-0. You are your team, so when you are not on the map, your team's behind. Take away 8 kills from this, your team's behind. By not recalling, you saw this dive, and you saw this tower, and you saw these 3 kills happen, right? This happened because you were not there. And you were not there because you greeted with your recall and you were always doing camps instead of recalling. So this is not your team's fault because you're the one with all the kills. This is your fault for not being here. If I was them, I would have also taken Dragon after that, which I probably would have ended up dying for against a 8-0 Jax. So you just stepped on a Zyra plant, which gave them vision of you. So now you know that the enemy team is all going to come after you. And, alright, here's where you finally get some punishment for your playstyle. And let me go into an explanation of what just happened here. Obviously, right, obviously, it's because their entire team is here. But there were 3 things that happened to have this happen. First, you gave them vision of you. Not only did you cross a ward, which you didn't necessarily know about, but you stepped on Zyra's plant, which gives her vision of you, which you definitely knew about. Unless that was one of her passive ones. I don't think those actually give vision. But it's still not something you really want to try and do. The second thing is you apparently can't count, and I say that in a friendly way, not in an offensive way. But whenever you're ever going to chase a kill, you need to count 2 ways every time before you engage or chase. The first way you count is what is the maximum amount of enemies that could be there. Now, if you're watching the map, you've seen just moments ago Zyra's middle, and you saw that Ezreal walked up middle too. So at least 2 people are here, but that's not what you're counting. You're counting the maximum amount of people here. So you see 2, and you don't see 3. That means there are fucking 5 people when you start counting. That could be here. That could show up here. The second way you count is what is the minimum amount of people for your team that could be there. And the reason you do that is because that way you can set up team fights where you're going to have a lead, where you're going to be better suited to win. The minimum amount is, in this situation, 1. Just you. Literally just you. Because Twitch is going to fucking CS. He's not going to come. Morgana's probably going to be here just to leech off of the CS. And Yasuo is over here at the 2nd tier tower. So best case, they come to you in 20 seconds when you're already halfway done with Dragon. Best case. But you're not counting best case, you're counting worst case to set up for better fights. So you are looking at right now, at the start of this, a 5 versus 1. You're pinging assist me on Dragon, but you have had opportunities to solo Dragon already this game, which means you do not actually care about Dragons, you care about kills, which is fine. You know, honestly, all Dragons do is give you the potential to get something later, and kills kind of do the same thing. So it's fine if you want to focus instead on towers and kills instead of Dragons. But if you're going to be taking a risky play to do this, it's showing me you don't know what an objective is worth or when to do them. This is unnecessary in every way. There are 5 people here. And that is how you count. It doesn't matter that there were only 4. You count 5. Doesn't matter that your team should have been there. You count 1 just for you because that is all that was there. That is the minimum. And now you end up giving them that Dragon anyways. And your team ends up dying. You have the Yasuo die. You have the Morgana probably die. But you do end up getting a turret out of this, which makes it not super bad, but still rather unfortunate. So you have gotten such a lead this game, and you don't know how to capitalize on it. That is something that I'm seeing. So strategically, let's go rewind, and we'll talk about what I would have been looking to do. So this play just happened bottom, and you know that the enemy team is probably still hovering around, but you then see this happen, or there are two people over here, and Xin Zhao shows topside. So your red buff is probably still there, and I would be looking to take red buff. But then after this, I would not be contesting anything on this side of the map right now because they have control over here. In the same way I was saying earlier with Xin Zhao was just on this side of your jungle. Where is the vision going to be for their team? It's where they most recently were. So if you're trying to set up your next play is to get your red buff, go get your blue buff, come get top tower, take Herald, and then go look for your second tier tower, top lane or mid lane. And if you see something between taking this tower and getting this gank off that you can go for instead, then you'll rethink your strategy. But that is your strategy because you are contesting this blind. And you are taking a risk solely relying on being 8-0. But if you look at your score, in just 1 minute's time, you went from 8-0 to 8-1. So you're not immortal. Imagine that. And look where their team was. And look where their vision is. You take these risks when you could have gotten something valuable on the other side of the map for either a trade, for less cost, or for free. Because you end up getting this tower for Dragon and 4 kills when it should have just been for Dragon. And then if you saw that their team was still playing around down here, dicking around doing something, you go and you take Herald afterwards for free. They trade you once. Let's say they trade you once for Dragon. This is unwarded because no one's been here, and it's free. So that's what I would have done. There's no reason to be playing chicken over here. You either want to push in that wave fast to set up for your next play, because think about again what's happening here. Either the Ezreal is pushing or he's basing. Those are the two scenarios. He's pushing or he's basing. If he's pushing, you kill him. If he's basing, you prevent him from basing, or you let him base and you take his turret, which is a fine option. Very worth doing. But I wouldn't have been on this side of the map. 1 kill on Ezreal doesn't necessarily mean much right now, because they're probably going to be able to trade your top tower if you were to get this tower. You have something to respond to up here and reasons to be on the top side of the map. As a jungler, your objectives are not only the jungle, but are turrets. They're not kills, because kills don't win games. The only fucking thing you need in this game to win is the Nexus. And how do you get to the Nexus? Is a row of turrets and an inhibitor. That's all you need. That's all you need. So everything you do is to set up for that shit. And if you're trying to set up for that, then you know what you need? You need turrets more than anything else. A kill is the same thing as a dragon, because that sets you up for the potential to win fights later. Yeah, whenever you're 8-0, you can take fights that you couldn't when you were 1-5. But you're still mortal, you still can die, so you still have to play smart. And whenever you do have these kind of leads, what you need to do is you need to capitalize on them and think about how you're going to win the game. Well, you can win the game by 1, split pushing and drawing pressure to you. You're Jax, you can do that pretty efficiently. Or you can look for a gank where you can get a turret. Well, the wave's all the way fucking back here, so you're not going to get a turret to bottom lane. Or you could think about defending turrets, because that's how they're going to win the game. Or you could think about jungle objectives that will set up for your next turret or your next play. Right now, you're hunting kills, and this is a very, very bad habit. This is how you can play a game where you're 15-2 and you still lose. As Jax, you never want to be sitting mid like this. ARAMing like this is not what you do with a champion that relies on just 1v1 pressure. You have a lot of engage potential with your stun, yes, but you have much better 1v1 potential, especially being 8-0. Or 8-1, 9-1. Right now, this is a pick. You can get this, and then you can rotate bottom and you can take this turret. That's what you would probably want to do in this situation and leave like the Morgana in the Malphite mid. Maybe the Yasuo in the Malphite. But by sitting mid like this, you're just waiting for them to engage on you. Or you're waiting for your team to engage. And look at this setup. 2 people were recently dead. So, look, the Rumble's at base. Xindao's dead. So, there's a 5 versus 3. So, obviously their team doesn't fucking want to fight. And there's no reason for them to fight, right? They have nothing really to respond to on the map. What you need to do to set up fights is to create a lose-lose situation. One of the best ways you can create a lose-lose situation is by having someone split pushing. And then rotating. So you split push, and since you're a jungler, you don't have TP, you're not going to permanently split push. You're going to get a wave going, and then you're going to rotate, so a huge wave crashes on the tower and eventually will take their tower. And at the end of the day, these kills aren't going to mean anything because you can't get anything here. You're too low to pressure the next turret. You're probably too low to do Herald. You don't get anything out of this, and those kills are meaningless. The only thing kills do is give you gold for later. But what does later mean? Right? Because you still have to win that later fight, and if it goes late enough, kills mean literally nothing. So what is the true purpose of a kill? It's to give you an objective uncontested. And if you can't take an objective because of these health bars, because the people that are going to be alive to contest you, it doesn't matter if you killed them. It doesn't matter at all. And look what could have happened. You could have just taken this turret. You could have taken this turret, maybe mid lane fight went even. Maybe you lost mid lane fight. But if you don't take this turret, you're not anywhere closer to winning the game. Now, at this point in the game, whenever you're farming your jungle like this, you are doing your team a disservice. You are going for gold whenever you could be getting the same amount of gold down here and still putting pressure on a turret. By doing these, you are making yourself irrelevant to the game. You are, look at your score now, 12-1, and you decide the most important thing for you to do is to get gold in the jungle. You are wasting everyone's time. Because if you wanted to right now, you should be single-handedly ending this game. And you know what's happening? Everyone's grouping mid randomly. So you know what you do? You go bottom and you give them the decision of they fight your team mid or they send like 3 people to come and fight you, and then your team wins this fight. By doing this, you are saying, I am having too much fun with this game being as fed as I am. I want to keep it playing, so I'm going to make it so that way they don't surrender. That is the only thing that this is. And if you're doing that, you're not trying to win. It's fine to have a good time. But if you're doing that sort of thing, you're not looking for coaching. If you want to just play and have a good time, that's totally fine and dandy. It's a game in the end of the day. It is a game. But you're not looking for help if you are essentially trolling. No, you just keep pushing. As a team, you keep pushing because 3 of them are dead. Super easy to keep pushing. Ping on the tower, assist me, assist me, assist me. Because you take this, you take inhib, or you take this. Those are your 2 choices right now, and judging by how fucking far ahead of you ahead of them they are, you take the inhib. And you need your team to stay. After this, Malphite can TP bottom and get that if he wants to. Yeah, they're just coming at you one at a time, so they're just asking to die. This game's very over, and it seems like their team's very tilted. Your team can close out the game just like this. Okay, so to summarize what I think that your issues are is, for starters, you don't know when to do Dragon. There are several times this game where you did have chances to do it, but the one time you decided to do it was pretty much the only time it was a bad decision to do it. You need to work on your counting to make sure that whenever you are going and you are doing these sort of chases, or even the chase over here, like what I was saying, you are counting maximum and minimum before you even get anywhere. And one of the ways you do that is by looking at the which lane is in a position to respond. Like how I was talking about the mid lane wave, and Talon would have been able to come into the jungle. Or I was talking about the time you were chasing, and the Rumble would have been able to respond to you. These sort of situations, you need to be very aware of how many people can be there. Because I see far too many times a jungler does a very risky invade and blames their team for not showing up. It is not your team's fault if they don't show up if you're not paying attention to waves. Your team needs wave priority to do this, and you need to be counting with that in mind. Second big problem is you have no idea how to ward. You need to go with what you've seen recently and track the enemy jungler to understand where they're going to be and if your ward will still be around by the time they get there. Your first ward over here was both a waste of time to come and ward this and then a waste of resource to ward it because you already had spotted the Xin Zhao bottom. So there was going to be no reason for him to specifically be here for a minute and your ward was going to be dead. It was going to spot nothing out. So you need to be better aware of what you can do with this. And in this specific game, think about all of those times that mid lane could have been ganked and all of the aggression that was happening here. If you want to do something very useful with your ward, but you don't actually want to gank this, track the enemy jungler by putting a ward out for your mid laner. They're going to do Raptors and then come gank mid, or they're going to do this kind of route and gank mid. So maybe ward River over here, right? These are your big options to ward, big, very team-centric warding places. And if you're just warding like this, it's because you have a ward in your inventory and you feel the need to put it down without actually understanding where people are going to be. And that's the same thing as not warding. So whenever you spot someone, think, for starters, about where they're going to be before you even think about where you're going to ward. Because you saw Xin down here, level 2 with red buff. That means he sure as hell is not going to be at his red buff. So you want to be looking as if he's going to be going down towards this side of the map and expect him to be down here for the next 2 minutes-ish. Because he's going to do his camps down here, finish his blue buff, and base before he ever comes to the side of the map. Whenever you pink warded this too, there was no way this was warded, and we're going to go into starting talking about predicting where the enemy warded. The only places the enemy can ward is where they have been. Since you saw the Xin Zhao was bottom for the last 3 minutes of the game, whenever you were warding this at 5.5 minutes, that means that there was no ward over here. So there was no reason to pink it. And if you weren't defending it, it was going to die. It was a wasted pink ward. So whenever you're doing something like this, there was no ward for you to track, to kill. there was nothing for you to steal for another 2 minutes, so you had to sit in this bush and wait for a minute, which is wasted time. So this was a bad ward. But then also whenever you chose to do your dragon, right, you put yourself right where the enemy team had been walking for the past 3 minutes, and that's the most likely place to be warded, and that's when you choose to do your dragon. And it turned out 4 of the enemy team was still here, right? 4 of the enemy team was still here. And look at their wards. This is what happens whenever an enemy team is nearby. They put wards down, and they're still there. And this also goes into play with what I was talking about ganking mid. That one time that you saw that they just were in your bot side jungle, and you chose to route this way to gank mid, when you could have had more of a chance of avoiding wards is if whenever you were coming from base, you understood that most likely you were counter jungled, so there was going to be no raptors, right? And for you to just spend that time, if you wanted to gank mid like this. There would be less wards that way because the only person that could have warded this side of the map would have been the Talon. And if the Talon warded that side of the map, it would have been pure chance at that point in the game and very unlikely because he was part of this shit. He was chasing down here, and he probably would have put his wards down here. Beyond that, I would say you need to start playing towards Herald a bit more. You completely ignore this objective, and whenever Dragon was down, you are still focusing this side of the map. Whenever the next big jungler objective is Herald and turrets, and Herald could play into those turrets. That's a pretty minor thing. Whenever I would go into the next big thing, it's you waste time farming your camps. And you also waste time not farming your camps at 2 different stages of the game. So the first thing is what I was talking about, your time up here. You're looking for this gank. When you're not going to get this kill, you're going to burn a flash at best. So you waste all of this time here, 45 seconds when we counted it together, not doing anything. And then you go and you put down that worthless ward, not doing anything again, and then you get your return gank. This is the only time you actually had to be in this lane. And this time, you could have farmed this camp, which you came back for anyways. Or you could have farmed Scuttle, which would put you in a position to maybe show up for mid lane aggression if the Rumble traded correctly and did not end up this low. Because you weren't going to dive him if he was full health. You got lucky with this chance to dive him. So you need to, for starters, be better managing your time with when to farm camps, but then later on in the game, you decide to go and farm your jungle instead of paying any attention to the waves. I don't remember exactly when that was. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly when that was. Yeah, right here it was. But you see on the minimap, and I'll show you, you're doing your buff, which is okay. Your team doesn't have a mid laner that relies on blue buff, but you don't really rely on blue buff either. And then you spend this time afterwards doing your camps, and this is a complete waste of everyone's time because you have, at this stage in the game, 12 kills, and 12 kills aren't really meant to be used on jungle camps. Your team is fighting mid lane, and this wave is going to provide you more gold than CSing your jungle anyways. So come to a lane like this and push it in. Or be looking for Herald, which at this point in the game I wouldn't be looking for this because you can get free turrets wherever you want and you don't need this anymore. This is something I would have been looking for earlier in the game, but not particularly now. But if you're doing stuff like this, you are not using your time in the best way. You could be on this wave, and this is truly one of Jax's greatest strengths. Split pushing like this and looking for 1v1s and drawing pressure. Baron's not up for another 2 minutes, so you could have decided to be down here and pushing this in to set up a wave so that way as soon as Baron spawned at 20 minutes, your team could be on this side of the map and the enemy team would have to respond to the wave down here, and you could make a Baron play as soon as it spawned, uncontested basically. And you are in a great position to do that. But instead you're farming every camp in your jungle. And then you don't even do your red buff because you're looking for the fight that you should have been there for anyways if this was going to be your focus. The next thing that your issue would be is you don't recall nearly enough, because that first time that you actually recalled, you straight, like, you had these items for the longest part of the game. And you got so many kills. Like, just watch your kills. Pay attention to nothing else. And these kills keep going up. And the CS keeps going up. And you're just farming the jungle and farming the jungle. And farming some kills and farming the jungle. And then you base at 11 minutes and straight up buy a Cinderhulk and a Trinity Force. That should never happen. Because whenever you do that, you are not using your lead. You need to use your lead by recalling, because you are getting lucky with all of these fights and nothing more. And then whenever you do choose to recall, finally, you end up seeing what that means, because you don't choose good times to recall. Right after this, whenever you recall, your team dies, because right down bottom lane, right, this play is happening, and you can't be here because you're at base buying your items. And it's actually 13 minutes that you finally go to your base for the first time and buy your items. You can't do that. You can't do that. You need to base more. I'm not saying base after every kill. You need to observe the map and check and see what can be done. But if you're just hunting kills and you're not going to get an objective out of it, those kills don't matter. You're not putting anyone really ahead. You are getting ahead, but if you don't win, if you don't get the turrets, your team is nowhere closer to winning. Because you have to go through a row of these to win the game. You don't have to go through waves of enemies. You have to go through a row of turrets. That's the win condition of every team. And your team, as I was mentioning, both of these teams have pretty good team fights, and your team as a whole is doing okay, but you also have great potential to split push between you and Yasuo. And you can utilize that. So start trying to do that too. Vision control, recall timers, objectives, managing your vision, managing where the enemy's vision is, tracking the enemy jungle, knowing to play towards Herald more, and playing towards turrets a bit more. Whenever you're picking out your gank pathing, that's something that relies a little bit on vision control. But your gank priority was to come top lane, and I think that you're too used to that, because there was absolutely no way you would get a kill on your first gank. And you might have blown flash, but at the best case scenario, if you blew his flash, you still weren't going to dive him. Because if he was low enough, he would have just TP'd back. And if he wasn't low enough, you wouldn't have dove him. So this wasn't going to play out into a kill if the Rumble played it correctly. You needed to be looking mid lane as your priority this game. And you only ganked mid lane like twice, and it was both just purely because you were clearing your camps without paying any attention to where you were going to be, and the Yasuo ended up like right next to your Raptors, and you decided to come and pick up your free kill. You just kind of capitalize on these free kills without actually knowing how to set up plays, if you know what I mean. And you bought one pink ward this game and you put it in a bad spot. If you're trying to use pink wards, use your pink wards to control objectives, because you do want to backdoor these objectives, it seems. And if you put the pink ward on this Herald, you would have been able to do this at like 12 minutes this game. You know, if you put it on Dragon, you could have safely done it after your first recall. There was a lot of situations that you could have done something like this. But you weren't using your pink ward to control vision. You used it to try and set up a gank, which is they shouldn't have been there anyways. Alright, well that's the end of this review. I hope some of it was helpful, and I know I come across as a bit aggressive in these reviews, but whenever I'm doing this sort of thing, and keep in mind, I have this position as a mentor because I truly believe people want to improve, and I believe people can improve. They just need to know what they're doing wrong. But I also believe people have an ego that needs to be crushed a bit before they understand what they need to improve on. So I'm sorry if I come across as a bit aggressive, but it's just the way that I do this. If you got any questions, do let me know. All right, good luck out there.